In the 1979, in Bologna, two friends who shared the passion for electronics and innovation led the base of a great company, Esseti Circuiti Stampati. Today, Esseti is a flexible and dynamic reality with an excellent added value, its service for the client. But what's the real core business of Esseti? The Italian PCB production and the certificated and guaranteed import for the mass production. All the PCBs produced and imported by Esseti are subjected to accurate quality control and then are sent to the client. In this way, the client receives a very reliable and effective product, a state-of-the-art product that he can immediately employ in his business. As we said before, the main character of this video is the multi-layer PCB that is deeply used in order to obtain high-quality technological tools. But how does it burn? And why does the need to be produced rise? The multi-layer PCB was born in order to satisfy the need to obtain a PCB of small size with all its features. I would like to make the skyscrapers example. In the past, the one-floor houses satisfied the needs of few inhabitants. However, the run-on of the time, the population rise and the reduction of the space led to the need to gather more people on the surface of a single house. That's why we saw the buildings with more floors that we call skyscrapers. One of the most important steps for the correct realization of a multi-layer PCB is the analysis of the technical documentation, the client's Gerber file. During this analysis, we verify to have all the technical data and we check if there are problems that could compromise the PCB functionality, the possible custom stack-up, the kind of material and the surface finish. We also verify that the Gerber file respects the IPC and the UL rules. At the end of the analysis and check of the file, we fulfill all the tools we need to produce, such as images of all the layers, drilling, milling and scoring program, and electrical test. Then, the technical sector, in order to facilitate the production, creates the panel work finding the option thanks to obtain less waste. Then, the technical sector, in order to facilitate the production, creates the panel work finding the option thanks to obtain less waste. The laminate is cut in the same sides of the panel decided from the technical office. Those panels will form the inner layers of the multilayer. After the cut, thanks to the millwork process, a photosensitive film is laid down on every inner layer. Through the exposure process, on the film there will be printed the sketch of the track of the file Gerber. During the exposure process, the photosensitive film is polymerized on the tracks, while it will remain unchanged in the areas where the copper will be eliminated. Now the unused copper is eliminated thanks to the incision process, but the copper on the tracks remains unchanged. At the end of the incision process, our panel will be exposed to the blacken process. Through this process, we oxidize the remaining copper in order to prepare it to the next step. Now, all our inner layers are ready to be put together by the hot press cycle process. Between the inner, we are going to insert some sheets of a particular monomer called pre-peg, useful to isolate and paste the inner. The panel now is called mass lam. The hot press cycle is a process characterized by its temperature and duration. These values are not steady. They change following the type of material we use. When we have the mass lam, it will be exposed to the X-rays process in order to locate and realize the balance holes useful for the drilling step. Now we are ready to start the panel drilling step that will be realized through numerical control machine. Now our drilled panel is exposed again to a X-rays qualitative check, and the operator will check if the holes center the pad. After being perforated and checked, our panel is ready to the etch-back step, a chemical process that eliminates all the drilling impurities, and the surface hole is ready to the metallic electrical connection process. This process is carried on by the deposit of graphite, copper or conductive polymer. Now our panel will be kneaded again as an inner layer in order to create the image of the tracks also on the external side. After this process, the panel will be laminated, exposed and developed again. Now also the external layers present the tracks, and we can go on to the electrical deposit step. This process is carried on by the use of electroplating line that contains copper sulfate solution useful to deposit the copper in the hole and on the tracks. The result of electroplating is the connection of the panel inner and external layers because the walls of the holes present a copper layer. The electroplating copper is deposited in the holes and on the external layers tracks, creating an increase of copper. Now the panel will undergo an additional incision process. At the end of this process, the panel is exposed to important qualitative checks in order to verify the definition of the tracks and the lack of interruptions or short circuits. The next process is the panel painting one. During this step, a special epoxy protection varnish called solder is sprinkled or applied. This varnish, after being applied, will be exposed again in order to discover all the pads that are involved in the weld process. Finally, it will be polymerized by a glaze process. The solder can present different colors, the standard green, but also blue, yellow, black, white and red. Later, if the client requests it, the element silk screen printing will be printed and glazed. Also, this varnish can present different colors, standard white, yellow, black and blue. At the end of these steps, our panel is subjected to the surface finish. The surface finish represents an important feature of the PCB and changes following the PCB complexity, use and warehouse time. There are a lot of surface finishes: OSP passivated copper, lead-free HAL, electrolytic gilding, chemical gilding, chemical silver and chemical thin. The next step is the electrical test through fly probe in order to verify the PCB connection. At the end of the electrical test, the panel is subjected to the mechanical finishes of milling and scoring. Now your multi-layer PCB is ready to be sent. As you can see, Esseti works hard in order to assist all the clients, assure them the best product on market and satisfy their needs. With this video, we wanted to open a window onto our world, in order to let you share in the productive steps of the PCBs we are proud to sell. We work together to provide the best. Easy, smart, Esseti.